Thank you.
I will always remember the day that I was able to get Steven Spielberg a standing ovation. Maybe you'll get some other ones as you go forward in your career. Good luck. Genevieve may have mentioned this, but what version of Close Encounters are we going to see today?
This is my version. This is not the studio's version.
It's not the version released in 1977.
No, it's the version released in '77, but it's also it leaves out something which I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody who hasn't ever seen Close Encounters, but it leaves out something that the studio said, if you want to shoot these other 5 scenes that was in your original screenplay, but we all ran out of money and we didn't let you shoot them, you've got to do one thing at the end of the movie, and then we'll give you the money to shoot these scenes. So I took the deal.
Took the deal, and then
cut out the scene.
And then when there was an opportunity, right, you made it the way you wanted. So this one's a little longer than in 1977.
That's right. That's right.
And that was like, so Columbia was hard up in November of in late 1977. You asked to hey man, give me a few more months to edit this the way I want, and the studio thought, no, you go now.
Well, they were financially, they were in the.
So is there a director's cut then? I've only seen the one cut. Well, I may have to check that out. So he adds a little bit.
They were in deep shit. And they wanted to get the movie out in the calendar year of '77. They wanted to get the movie out in November, December, January. What I didn't understand was if they really were in such financial straits, why they only released the movie in 2 theaters for 6 weeks, the Cinerama Dome in Hollywood and the Ziegfeld Theater in New York City. Why didn't they just go out in 1,000 screens? I don't know why. And I thought, oh my goodness, all the air is let out of the movie with it. People aren't able to see it, just 2 theaters. But when we did go wide, people did come, which was good.
If only they'd known if there was a director who'd had a movie that was released on many, many screens, maybe just a few years earlier, and that had done well, perhaps they made a different decision. It all obviously worked out in the end for you. I want to say first that I'm here because Howard Suber, who made the UCLA, longtime UCLA professor, made the wonderful docuseries Power of Film, which we had on TCM. Thank you. And it's really good. I think it's a must for TCM fans. It's streaming now on Max. At the last minute, he couldn't make it, so I'm stepping in for him. But please check out the Power of Film, which was, this sounds now trite, but it was powerful, it was moving, yeah. As both Steven and I, watching it independently, and amazing that you did, were taking notes.
Yeah, I actually I have what you have in your lap right now, watching the entire series.
Yeah, and then I'm taking the notes, I'm like, and for what am I taking these notes? But again, it imprints it into my head. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions that I know Howard wanted to get to. I do want to ask you about the casting of the character of Roy Neary, the electrician, because I've interviewed Richard Dreyfuss many times, and he loves to tell this story. Richard loves to tell stories, and in the process, maybe gets a little bit carried away, just to juice the story a little bit. But you were working on Close Encounters while making Jaws, correct?
Yes.
So you're working on it, you're crafting it, writing it, and you're shooting it on Martha's Vineyard, right? You're making Jaws. And in his version, he knows that you want to cast other people, and that he would sort of walk by your office and disparage in a playful way other people. Like he'd walk by and he's like, Al Pacino has no sense of humor. Dustin Hoffman lacks boyhood wonder, Is any of that true?
It's all true. It's all true. Richard is a good storyteller, but Richard tells the truth. And that's exactly what happened. Richard was right there. We were working every day. We were sort of marooned on Jaws for over 7 months, about 5.5 of those months on Martha's Vineyard before.
Man, he said he took 7 months to shoot Jaws. Wow. I wonder why, because the weather and you're on the water and because that's a long time. Like, I think Christopher Nolan was saying he shot The Dark Knight in like 3 months. So,
coming to Catalina Island off the coast here. And so we spent a lot of time with each other, and I was working on the script while we were making Jaws, and exactly what happened, because I had different people in mind to play the different parts.
Steve McQueen, was that an option?
I went to Steve. He read the script, and he was great. He read the script, and he invited me up to his beach house to talk about it. And he opened up a can of Colt 45 beer, and I wasn't a drinker. He didn't understand why I wouldn't drink the beer he put right in front of me. But we sat there, and he told me how much he really liked the script, and then he told me that he was not going to be.
that's so funny. Steve McQueen. Such a badass. He's like so rich. I drink Colt 45. That would have been interesting to see him in this. But yeah, Dreyfuss is pretty much perfect. But McQueen, I think, died like 5 years later or less. Terrible cancer, because he did racing and they wore asbestos suits. Like literally suits lined with asbestos, because you don't want you to catch on fire. But I'm not sure if they knew back then. I don't know if this is like the 50s, early 60s, that it caused cancer. And yeah, he had terrible cancer, and it's sad, but wow, Steve McQueen.
Roy Neary, and I asked him why, and he said, interesting, he said, because at the very end, Roy Neary breaks down, and he's crying at the end, and I don't do that. And I said, I said, I'll cut it out. And he said, no, because when I read your script, it made me cry that moment. You can never cut that out.
It's interesting. The way I read it, and obviously you know better, being in the room with the Colt 45s, the undrunk Colt 45s, I read it as that he couldn't cry on cue, but you were saying he doesn't. Like that's not something he was interested in doing on camera.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's very different. Exactly. That's interesting. And then those other guys,
Yeah, he's a real man, a real tough guy. He doesn't cry on camera. Come on.
The usual suspects of brilliant actors at the time: Pacino, Hoffman, Hackman, Nicholson. They were all in your head, maybe?
Maybe in my head. A couple of them, I don't want to name who, didn't, respond to it. A few of them did, and we met, but didn't want to make the picture. It was a pretty far out idea for a movie in those days anyway.
Sure.
It was pretty crazy.
And is this for you the way, as audience members who see films they love and identify with and connect with on an emotional level, and then afterwards it's sort of impossible to imagine anyone else? Do you now have that with Richard?
I do. Richard and I sort of identify with each other. And in a sense, when Truffaut makes movies, he kind of casts himself. And what I didn't realize was I was going to wind up casting myself to play, because that is how I identify with that kind of a character. And I wrote it from what I know. And it turned out that when Richard did the film, I really recognized a kind of kindred spirit. And I apologized at some point to Richard after about shooting 20, 30 days on Close Encounters that I kept him, I kept him in the wings for so long. I don't feel bad about that anymore.
Yeah, it worked. Things worked out just fine for Richard, who's a big supporter of TCM, and he's been so wonderful to us. So his wife is played in the film by Terry Garr, who's so great. And you tell me why you liked Terry Garr.
Because she was funny.
Did you see her in a commercial?
I saw her in a commercial. She made me laugh in a commercial, selling soap or something. Coffee, something that I don't drink. I don't drink coffee. So whatever she was selling, I wasn't buying it, but I was really wanting to meet her for my movie.
So you can find that commercial of Terry Garr. Just Google Terry Garr coffee commercial. It is 30 seconds long, and I totally see why. There is a likability, authenticity that you do not associate with commercials, where I sort of believed all of the story of why she makes this coffee and why she likes it.
Well, she witnesses her husband having what you might call a psychotic break.
What appears to be, yes, that's right.
And when this is happening, I didn't want the character, her character Ronnie, to just be despairing and to fall apart and to be dark about his darkness. I wanted somebody that could figure out, how can I be normal in the middle of my husband melting down? What can I do to just sort of make fun of it, make light of it, until I really realized that I don't know how to handle anything like this. So I needed somebody with that sort of lift of humor.
Yeah, and how many people here have not seen Close Encounters? It always amazes me, although overwhelming majority have. So, again, we won't spoil anything, but this next question will reveal something about the movie, but it's sort of why I think perhaps the biggest reason, and Howard was going to ask it, of why Close Encounters means so much, why it stands out, what made it different. As you know from watching many of these movies, you remade one of them, War of the Worlds. Generally, movies involving aliens involve a threat, and a threat that is then realized, right, with devastation. You had a very different take here. What were you thinking behind that? Why was that your approach to a story about aliens on Earth?
As a kid, I was influenced very much by the movies, science fiction movies, Westerns, but I was also very influenced by my parents. And my dad, one day, woke me up in the middle of the night. I must have been 6 or 7 years old. We were living in New Jersey, and it was summertime, and he brought me out in the dead of night. I was scared. I didn't know, why does a father come into a room and say, come with me in the middle of the night? Put me in a car, drove me to this park, and there were a lot of people in the middle of the night on picnic blankets in the dark with some low-powered battery-operated flashlights, and they were laying down looking at the sky, and my dad wanted me to see the Leonid meteor shower. And so when I had a chance to suddenly develop an awareness that we are not alone, when you look up at the sky, your imagination immediately looks up there and says, there's something happening out there that we may not fully understand here, and not just in the area of physics. And I became romanced by the sky. The night sky was a romantic thing that I didn't look up there and say, death is going to come raining down on us from some Martian, invasion. I really looked up and thought, if anybody does bother to come hundreds, thousands, millions of light years to find us here, it is going to be a peaceful communion.
And magical, right? I mean, almost like surreal, which is sort of what I see in Dreyfus, this wonderment, to the wonderment of a little boy looking up at the sky.
Yeah, the character of Dreyfus is very much like the character of the little boy who was played by a 3-year-old named Carrie Guffey, who's Melinda Dillon's son in the movie. Dreyfus.
Yeah, that's definitely a difference between a lot of alien movies. Is they're there to kill humanity, and this is definitely not that kind of movie.
His character and Barry's character are the same character.
So this 3-year-old boy, Barry, in the movie, played by this kid, Carrie Guffey, his face is unbelievably expressive. What sophisticated directorial tools did you use to induce those expressions from this young child?
Look, I didn't say your dog is dead or anything like that to get him to cry or to get him to laugh. What I did was manipulative, but it was effective. When he had to look out the screen in porch to look at the sky because something was coming out of the sky, and he was looking at this with great fascination, I simply said, I have a present for you. First I said, roll, and we rolled the camera. And I said, I have a present for you. And I got up on a ladder, so it was above his sight line, and I had a gift wrap present. And I slowly started to unwrap the present. One piece of paper, one ribbon string at a time. And his eyes were salivating. I removed the lid of the box, and I brought a little toy car out for him. And I said, cut, next shot.
That's hilarious. And that's why he's one of the best. That is a great moment in the movie. And then he's just there with a gift. And he gives him a toy car. He's like, perfect shot, cut, let's move on.
You guys will see in a critical role as a French physicist. You will see a French filmmaker, François Truffaut. It suggests, given that you're Steven Spielberg and he's François Truffaut, that you guys must have known each other. But you went cold to get him. I mean, it was a cold call, right?
Well, I wrote it for him. I wrote it with him in mind. Once I saw Wild Child, and I realized that he was a really good actor, and he had, like Kerry Guffey's, like Barry and like Roy, he also was a child at heart. It was something very so childlike about Francois, and from his movies, and all from his interviews, and also from some of his writing. And so I wrote it with him in mind, knowing he would never say no, and also knowing I wouldn't have the courage to ever send it to him. But he was my template for the character. And then I went to Paris. I interviewed a lot of actors. Depardieu, very young at the time. Trintignant, interviewed him. He was sort of the guy that I thought I was going to give the part to. And just before I made
Depardieu. He's in that Ridley Scott Columbus movie, right? Which is just a hilarious choice for Columbus. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. It's like, couldn't you have got an Italian or Genoan? Because I think Columbus was from Genoa, but good actor, but he's pretty good in The Three Musketeers.
an offer to Trintignant. I took a chance, and I got Francois's number, and I called, and I got a chance to, didn't talk to him, but I talked to somebody who works for him, and I told them I'd like to send a script, something for him to play in, a role. And he accepted the script through his assistant, and sent the script, and it didn't hear back for 2 or 3 days. And I think on the third day, in those days we had telegrams, and I got a telegram directed to me saying, Mr. Spielberg, very happy to read your script. Where do I report for wardrobe fittings? That's how I found out he said yes.
So I imagine one of the millions of things I love about you, I like the films that you make too, by the way, but I just imagine that you have, like that, we have moments in our lives that I keep having at this festival. Like, I was sitting here with Jodie Foster before Silence of the Lambs, and now I'm sitting here with Steven Spielberg before Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's a good job.
I'd like to be sitting here with Jodie Foster from Silence of the Lambs.
She was.
I'd love to interview her.
Yeah, gosh, she was
She's
good.
amazing.
He is smart. So, like that, you must have felt, still a young man, still an emerging director. You had this one major hit, but that you're like, who do you call and go, I got a telegram from François Truffaut. He wants to be in my movie.
It's the kind of thing that in the heat of battle, of pre-production, things are happening at such an extraordinary pace every single day. Your day is so filled up, and on the schedule, a pre-production schedule, even in an office, doesn't have to be on location, just in an office, there's so much incoming that you have to attend to. And it didn't change when we all went from analog to digital. It's actually more busy now than it was then. But it was pretty crazy then, so it didn't really affect me. I couldn't believe that he said yes, but the next thing I knew, we were in a wardrobe fitting, and I met him for the first time. And it was very professional. We got to know each other actually better when the movie wrapped than we did during the production.
So I got time just for like one more question. I didn't really have time for it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Because, you and I are both big Bruce Springsteen fans, and frequently this happens with artists, whether they're musicians or whether they're writers or whether they're filmmakers, and it'll happen, with their second project, their second film, their second novel. Jaws was your second feature film, and you'd already made some stuff for television.
Third, yeah.
Third?
Yeah. Sugarland, Jaws, and then Close Encounter.
Sorry, Jaws was your second.
My second one, yeah.
Yeah. So Jaws was your second, not your first, but Jaws is the one that everyone was, oh my goodness, Steven Spielberg, right?
Yeah. Give him money. Give him money for the next one.
So I'm curious, and you know, Springsteen, Born to Run was the third album, but there still was pressure then on the fourth, and there had to be pressure for you for Close Encounters, and I'm just curious what that felt like. Like, am I the kind of person who's going to make this one great film, and am I going to be unable to replicate that success, or do those thoughts not enter into your mind?
Not even a little bit. I mean,
Really?
not even a little bit. Because I wasn't looking to match the box office at Jaws. I had this movie in my heart for a long time. I made a little movie called Firelight about UFOs when I was 16 years old in Phoenix, Arizona, on 8mm. And it was 2.5 hours long. It was actually longer than the movie you're about to see. And so this was in my kishkas, you know, and I really felt that I didn't care. I just wanted to make the movie. That's all that mattered to me.
Well, that's a remarkable testament to whatever it is inside of you that drives you, and everybody in this theater is grateful that you have it. So, Steven Spielberg, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a good little interview. But wow, that movie you made when he was 16, 2.5 hours long. Wow, it's probably out there. I've never watched it, but yeah, it's a good interview. I always enjoy watching Steven Spielberg talk about filmmaking. I mean, he talk about childlike. He's somewhat childlike with the energy and the excitement he evokes when he talks about filmmaking, and yeah, so yeah, always interested to watch a Spielberg interview. But anyways, that's about it. Like, comment, subscribe, and see you next time.